curious. I'm so curious to ask him what lure he throws, so we could tell him what lure we throw and compare them.
Oh, I'd love to compare lures.
Yeah, we'll do that off the scene here later on, but I'd imagine they're somewhere in the same ballpark. But I'm hoping it's something I've never heard of.
It might be. The lure I like the most, you can't get anymore.
Oh boy.
Well, then it's definitely not the same lure, right? Yeah, and you know what? And if you can't get it, you can't get it. But if we tried your lure where we fish, I bet you it'd work, and vice versa. And
I don't mind telling you the lure on here. I mean, I've talked about it on my channel so much.
All right, go ahead.
That lure now is going for $90 on eBay because of me.
So if you're watching this episode, someone is going to win the giveaway today with Yellow Dog Paddle. I spoke to Mike Herman. Someone actually did guess the length of the fish exactly.
But he didn't reveal it yet.
Nah, he didn't reveal it. But that person still could lose because if someone else guesses that exact same number and then guesses a closer weight, they'll take it.
Well, so let me put it like this then. If you haven't made a guess yet, and you go on there and you scroll through the guesses, one of those guesses is right. So it narrows it down a little bit. You know that you shouldn't be making a totally unique guess.
There's over 60 guesses, and this doesn't air till Friday. So if you see this, you're gonna have like 17 minutes to guess like real fast. And there'll be more than 60 by Friday. So you're screwed.
Suffer for the fish.
But someone did hit it. So someone is going to win a trip. Mike Herman, again, he fished the RVTA tournament on Saturday just for himself in the pouring rain. He had 25 fish.
Damn.
A couple decent lake trout, 20 to 23 inches. Then on Sunday, he went back to Merrill Creek, landed 9 fish, 2 skillful anglers, 2 smallmouth over 19 inches. So Mike was out there doing that. He wrapped up Round Valley. He's done. The water's too warm. He doesn't want to kill fish, so he's done with that. That big rainbow in the competition is basically his last Round Valley trip. So if you haven't entered that, get on there. All you have to do is follow Yellow Dog Paddle and take a guess at how long that fish is, and the weight is the tiebreaker. That ends today, though, so you're out of time.
You got a couple minutes, maybe.
If you didn't win, you're going to have to call and actually pay for the trip. I'm sorry. So call Yellow Dog Paddle, and you're going to have to pay for a trip because you just didn't pay attention and make the right decisions.
And he's fishing Spruce Run now currently, and the hybrid fishing is pretty hot from what I'm hearing, correct?
He's doing good, yeah. Spruce Run, and he's also still doing some MCR, so if you Merrill Creek too. I don't think he's doing any Round Valley. He might maybe if you request it, but I think he's done. Hello, and welcome to episode number 64 of the NJ Multi-Species Podcast. I am your host, Joe Santiago. As always, my partner, Chris Pereira.
Here I am. I got a new room.
There he is. He's in a new room. He's been thrown out of his bedroom, and he's now in his little podcast cave that he made there. It's like a little burrow.
Dude, I got New Jersey State fish puzzle picture. I got the Suffer for the Fish. That's the first original Suffer for the Fish shirt that Deuce ever made. You remember that one?
The prototypes, yeah.
Yeah, the logo on the front is like in your armpit. It's fucking useless to wear, so I hung it on the wall.
Oh, God.
I wasn't supposed to curse in the first couple of minutes of the episode, right?
No, it just demonetized the whole episode.
Cheers.
Well, fishing reports. Last week, the fishing report, saltwater wise, from the gambler Chris Lito, it was horrendous. This week, he finally saw an uptick back in the other direction where the fluking got better. The
Wait,
night fishing.
There's the same report last week. It just keeps going up and down, huh?
It's really by the wind. He said they got like one day of a really rare north wind, which they had a great bite on, and then they had a west wind for one. But then it keeps going back to the south. But yeah, the brutal south like has been killing them. But he said it's getting better now. But the night fishing, he said, that's been getting really pretty good. Like almost like 10 to 12 ling per person plus sea bass. There's sea bass. So the night trip's a good, like a freezer filler trip right now.
I saw. I mean, this south wind is just relentless. Still, I think we said the same thing last week. And I mean, I'm seeing reports even from Jerry Pastorino. It looked like a couple of days. The fluke just was almost impossible, and they were ling fishing. I mean, just to catch fish. I mean, they were ling fishing, bottom fishing. They caught fluke, but I got to imagine for him to switch to ling fishing and other bottom fishing during fluke season without limiting out on fluke first, that's bad news.
Yeah, and I asked Jerry Pastorino because we know he's the master of bottom fishing. Because I've always been told, basically, you always hear the saying, east is beast, west is best. So you figure that the east is the worst wind. These guys will tell you that the south is the worst. I mean...
Yeah, no. East can be all right for fish. It gets rough, obviously. The south, it's like even if you have a south wind and the ocean is calm and it seems like a nice day of fishing, it still seems to somehow screw everything up.
Yeah, they just closed their mouth. But an uptick in fishing from the Gamblers report. And like I said, the night fishing trip looks like a good freezer filler. Other reports, freshwater. What do you have freshwater, Chris? I know the Knee Deep Club had their hybrid striped bass tournament. It was the duel again of Kevin Cool and Eddie Mackin. Kevin Cool came in first place. And Mackin came in second.
That looked like a crazy report from Kevin. He literally said I think he had one hit. He had one hit, he caught one fish, and that was the winning fish.
And all 6 fish that are in the top 6 that got paid out are all in the 6 pound range, from like 6 pounds 3 ounces to I think up to Cools. That's like 6 and 15 ounces or something like that.
I don't remember the weights, but
they're all in the 6s. But yeah, Kevin Cool's in beast mode with the hybrids as usual. So him and Mackin were out there dueling it out. Mackin had a nice fish that was like 6'7" or 6'6" or something. I fished Lake Parsippany Bass Tournament with John Dorn. John Dorn was actually he went out fishing with Kevin Saturday, and John Dorn got skunked, and Kevin caught 2. Kevin fell off the boat into the water, trying to get his lure.
Why can't we catch this stuff on video?
I don't know. It's just that's when the camera's not rolling, of course.
That's the kind of stuff I want video of.
Me too. And then, so Dorn came in kind of like on a cold streak, like he was bummed he had gotten skunked.
Well, he got outfished by Kevin. I mean, I'd sell my shit at that point. Pretty
much, basically. So Dorn was like so we got the boat out. I caught a fish that was like 16 something at 16 and an eighth or 16 and a quarter. And then we went about like probably 3 hours with nothing. Not a bite.
Jeez.
Just kept just beating the bank. We don't know the lake at all. It's a pretty weird lake.
Yeah, you know what? A lot of these private lakes, I don't know. In my opinion, a lot of these private lakes, they've been ruined by the people who don't fish on the community.
Oh yeah, big time.
Like
it needs a fish kill and
yeah, like the people that live there that don't fish, They want to turn the freaking lake into a swimming pool.
Basically, they
I've
dye
never
it to
been.
look like a pool.
Yeah. They do. I mean, I've
It's
never been to
literally
this particular lake, but I've seen lakes. I mean, we're talking some of the best lakes in New Jersey, at least North Jersey, and I fished a lot of them. Some of these private lakes are some of the best fishing for whatever's in there. Most of the time, bass, and they just kill all the weeds. They kill the weeds to a point where they're trying to turn it into like a swimming pool. Like I don't get it.
They
That
do
could
that
be a
in
whole
every
episode
lake,
in
though.
itself.
They do that in every lake. I mean,
no, but there's a right way to do it. Like there's a right way to manage the weeds, and it's not by
that's
completely
an entire
nuking the
episode in
whole
itself.
lake multiple times during the summer. So
that is an entire episode.
That is. In fact,
yeah. Better write it down.
We're gonna do that in September.
But anyway, we continued just beating the bank. I knew Kevin had 3 fish because I talked to him on the phone. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, Dorn just pulls a 17 3/4, which that was a fairly big fish. It would end up winning the lunker. So now we had 2. Getting down to the last hour of the tournament, we just said, let's go back to where I caught my first fish in the morning and just fish it. We head back there. Dorn, on 2 casts in a row, pulls in like 2 15-inch somethings. So I'm like, oh, we got 4 fish now. Now, Max and Kronk pulled their boat out of the water because they had 5 fish. Max is calling me laughing. We're bagged out. He thinks no one's bagged out, and he's the only one with 5 fish, and he can't lose. So the boat's off. It's off the lake.
That's the same mentality. Like you go into a contest or a tournament, and you don't check in your first couple of fish because you don't think they're big enough. He deserves
all the shirts to be confiscated from him. But anyway, long story short, I said, now we have 4 fish, dude, and one of them's big. It's probably the lunker. Like, we need 1 fish. So we're just fishing the shit out of it, like power fishing, like as hard as we can. There's 18 minutes left in the tournament, and Dorn pulls up like this dink bass that's 14 1/4. And I'm like, it's a really small fish, but I'm like, that big one that he caught might make up for it. So long story short, we ended up bringing it in. They do the math, and Kevin comes out. We won by 1/4 inch. So, like, Dorn came up amazingly huge. Max didn't even Max was beaten. Kevin came in second.
Max has already popped a champagne bottle all over himself and ripped his shirt off, and he came in like last place.
It was absolutely ridiculous. No, I think he got 4th place, I think. But no, he pulled it too early. But always hold the rail, suffer for the fish. It was hot as hell. We just kept casting, and Dorn, like I said, we kind of looked at that fish and said, oh my God, what a dink. And it turned out the fish won it for us. We won the money for the, whatchamacallit, the lunker pot, and we won the money for the tournament. So we made out pretty good.
So cool. The guy who never bass fishes beats all the bass guys at their own game on their own lake. It's a great story.
I've been bass fishing now quite a lot.
I can see that.
Not doing good at it. All right.
Hey, what's up, Dennis?
So Jen Wong called me the other day. Well, actually, he didn't call me. He stopped over, too. He picked up a shirt to take to ICAST because he went to Florida. But he was ranting and raving, Chris, that you took him out and got him his first lake trout on a drop shot rig.
I mean, look, I love to catch fish. Obviously, I know you hear people say all the time, like, oh, I like to catch other people fish. Like, they like that more. I'm not going to say I like it more, but it's a pretty close equal when you're able to bring someone out and kind of help them catch their first of whatever it is they want to catch. In this case, lake trout. But I gotta say, like, remember when I took you lake trout fishing, and I do it a certain way.
Yes.
Without getting into too much details, but that's not how he caught this fish. So I wanted to catch him. He's never caught landlocked salmon either. And whatever, it gives away the place. I really don't care. We wanted to catch him his first landlocked salmon and his first lake trout. And Jen's just, like, Jen, he's like, dude, I don't care. I'm fishing. I'm happy. I don't care. But I'm like, in my head, nah, dude, like, we want to accomplish these goals. And so I wanted to get some live bait just as backup for the salmon, because my boat's not equipped for trolling. I can do it, but it's not that efficient. And they had no herring. Highway Sports Shop had no herring that week. I guess I think Dow's didn't have enough to sell out to the shops last week.
Eddie said there's something going on where, like, the big sized herring are, like, sitting back to let the little size herring eat, so they're not getting caught in the trap. So he said they're having trouble keeping the pens full, and the ones they're getting into the pens are quite small. They can't get the big ones. But he said this is like a phase that happens every year, and it'll pass.
I guess we probably never noticed that phase because Dow's probably has enough for themselves.
Yeah.
And if that's where you're getting it from, then...
I mean, he said right now Dow's has them, but they're very small. Like, they can't get the big ones.
Yeah, okay. So that makes sense. So basically, they didn't have enough. If you missed, what was it, last episode or the episode before? Oh, no, it was Yellow Dog. Mike Herman made us aware that Highway Sport Shop does have herring. They do buy herring from Dow's and have them available at that shop, which is awesome because now they're available in Central Jersey, whatever you want to call it, South North Jersey, whatever the hell you want to call it. Anyway, I went there. They didn't have it. I got shiners instead, even though I was pretty sure they weren't going to work, and I was right. They didn't work as live bait. So we switched over, and we were kind of drop shotting for what I thought were smallmouth on these bait balls. And Jen hooks a nice fish, drop shot, and I'm thinking it's a nice smallmouth. And it comes up to the surface, and it was, a 22, 23-inch lake trout, his first one. And he was ecstatic, and I was like, holy shit. I'm like, we did it. We did it by accident, but we did it. Like, I was planning on taking him out to jig lake trout the way that, like, we do it, we go do it that way. And he got it on a drop shot, awesome, basically fishing for smallmouth, which was cool. And we weren't able to, we trolled a little bit. It's out of my comfort zone, but I did it anyway. And, I could do it with like 5 rods, but no landlocks for us. But we did pound on the smallmouth. He ended up catching another smaller laker while we were trolling for salmon. And yes, I was trolling fast, and I don't know how this laker came up out of the depths there and chased it as a little one.
The weird stuff that always happens when Jen's around.
Yeah, but yeah, no, we we hit on the smallmouth pretty good. There was I don't know what club it was, but there was a bass kayak bass tournament there that day. Sound like everyone had a pretty tough day, and I would probably describe the day as pretty slow pick, but we got plenty of smallmouth action, and Jen headed on down to Florida for ICAST, happy catching his first lake trout. And I mean, that makes the day right there. Nothing else really matters, in my opinion.
And he took a suffer shirt with him.
There you go. Said he's so happy. He's like, I'm gonna wear that ICAST. He's gonna wear that shirt all over ICAST. And
good job. You're right though about the thing. Fast Eddie calls me that all the time. He says that I should be a guide, but I like this muskie, like watching Katie reel that muskie in was better than me catching it. For some reason, sometimes it is just cooler to see someone else catch it than you.
I definitely don't want, if I'm out there and someone's with me that is trying to catch their first of whatever species it is, and I've obviously already caught it, I feel so bad if I catch one of those species before they do.
Well, what if they're coming from really far away, like Thomas Wyatt? Because he had caught
I
a
don't
hybrid.
think I would even touch a rod, dude.
Because he had caught a hybrid before, but now he drove 2.5 hours to go fishing. So it's not his first one, but he drove very far.
No, then I don't care. Then it's every man for himself.
So you don't care about Thomas Wyatt. He's shoved in the back.
If he wants to fish for a species he's never caught, then I'll hold his hand and walk him through it. But if he wants to just fish, every man for himself.
All right, I think the guest is ready to come in. Is he? Is he ready?
We got Dennis ready, I think.
Probably
ready? After a lot of technical difficulties, which I finish most of my water, and then we get him in, but nobody will see any of that part. So, yeah, he's ready to come in.
Okay, let's get him in. So Eddie Mackin finished in second place over the weekend in the hybrid contest with a hybrid over 6 pounds. His buddy, forgot his buddy's name. I think it's Giuseppe. He came in sixth, I think, with another hybrid or fifth. So Mackin is on the hybrids now, daylight, and believe it or not, the night bite still isn't over. I don't know how, or like I don't even believe it enough that I would go, but still seeing pictures from like all the guys that fish it normally, like Henro and Mackin. They're still catching fish. Even Katie and her dad are out there still catching walleye. So Mackin's he's still.
That's the surprising part is seeing so many walleyes still. I mean,
that's what I was
usually
like
usually the bass kind of take over, but yeah, we've seen a lot of. I mean, I wouldn't go out there now with you, but I'd go out there with Mackin for sure.
I wouldn't go with me either, and that's why I haven't. But he is still running the red-eye trips because the fishing is still so good. So if you want to jump on one of those red-eye trips, you can call Eddie. He's got people lined up ready to go. Or if you just want to rent the boat for yourself. We also just had, if you saw the pictures, we had Kronk's party on the pontoon boat with 8 of us. Eddie takes groups of 8 people out on that pontoon boat, also for rent. So please call Mackin's Rippin' Lips fishing trips today. Short little intermission thanks to Deuce's wife ruining the podcast. Our guest is ready. Our next guest has been fishing Pennsylvania, New Jersey for basically 57 years, his whole life since he was 3. He is a YouTube content creator and a multi-species angler. Dennis Haring, we're pleasure to have you on the NJ Multi-Species podcast.
What's going on,
Thank you.
Dennis?
Happy to be here.
Are you sitting in front of a green screen?
I am.
Do you do like stunts and stuff? Like what do you do with the green screen?
Well, in the winter when I make some content on my YouTube channel, I often use the green screen for background. I have a boathouse that I do a lot of my videos from where I have all my tackle. But it gets a little cold in there in the winter. It's not heated. So in the wintertime, I use the green screen.
That's cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. Are you gonna put something on it right now, or it's just gonna be green?
It's just gonna be green. I have no way of putting anything on it while we're here.
Damn it.
Dennis, let me get right to this question because it's one that always bothers us because we love to make videos and put stuff out too. How careful are you with your videos not to burn the spot that you're fishing?
It depends on where that spot would be. So if I'm fishing a large lake, something that is, 1,000 acres or more, then I'm a little more liberal with where I'm fishing because I'm not talking about where I fish. My channel is about the art and science of fishing. It's really about educating people on how to become better anglers. So I don't talk spots, but it doesn't stop people from noticing where I'm fishing if I'm doing a video on a lake or river. So if they recognize where I am, well, then so be it. But oftentimes I don't think it's real it's not always evident where I am when I am fishing, and there's places that I go to that I would never give up those locations. They're secret places. They're small ponds and lakes that are nice to fish, and I've made videos about that, how to find those kind of places. But there is a balance there, and I have a lot of friends that sometimes they're not real happy with what I might be showing because they're afraid that I might be giving up information that they would rather not have me give up. So I try and find a balance with that.
I've seen those videos that you make, and those are like one of your more popular videos. That the one that's like how to find a new secret spot. Like you have a few videos like that on your channel, and that's pretty interesting. You want to explain it all how you do that, or do you want to make them go watch the video to see it?
Well, the main thing is a lot of map study and finding areas that are open to fishing. I'm trying to, I try and fish on public water. There's, I mean, it would be nice to be able to go on private water, but I don't have that opportunity. So the first thing is to find where I can go. And a lot of that is map study. In the Pocono Mountains, and I'm sure this is true in northern New Jersey as well, there are a lot of small bodies of water, and quite a few of them are on game lands or on open land to fish. And so it starts with finding those. The Delaware River corridor is a really good area for this. There's a lot of bodies of water without any names on them. Some have names, some don't. And so usually what I do is in the wintertime when I'm not fishing as much, that's when I go and start looking at these places to determine if I think they'll be any good. Because some of them, they might only be a foot or two deep. They're walk-in only, and if they don't have enough depth to them, they're not going to be any good for what I'm looking for. Yeah. But so it takes time. You have to go and do the map study, actually go and see what's there, how deep it is, and then eventually you finally get to fish it. And sometimes it's a dud. I've been to many places that you can't catch a bass bigger than 12 inches because they're all stunted. But then other times you'll find that one special place that very few people are going to that have, a lot of nice fish in them, including bluegills and perch and that kind of thing as well.
And it it goes without saying, obviously, that you have to fail many times before you succeed in ventures like this. And I've experienced similar things in New Jersey. Like you said, you go and you check these places from a map. A lot of the times, they're not good. Maybe there's no fish in them, or there's only little fish.
Yeah.
And if you're only catching little fish and there's a total pain in the ass to get to it, you're probably not going back there, right?
Yeah. Agreed.
But sometimes you find a place that's easy to get to, that's like on the way back home from work or something, and it's loaded with 14-inch bass, and you can't get a bigger one, but that's still cool if you only have a couple. Like, everything may have its purpose in it, right? I mean,
yeah, the best place I found has like a homemade boat launch. It's just a little grassy area, but you can launch a boat there. And I put my bass boat in this place, and I don't know, I'm guessing it might be 30 acres. It's not real big, but it's not tiny. And it has a lot of fallen trees in it, and a lot of lily pads. And these lily pads that are in this particular pond have purple flowers, which are pretty rare. So it just makes the whole experience that much better. It's a really wild area, not much around there, and the fishing's really good there.
Does it almost? Sorry, I was gonna say, this particular place, I'm trying to picture like what you're talking about, and it reminds me of a couple of places in New Jersey that I've come across that look private. It almost look like, I can think of one place in particular in my head that looks like it's someone's backyard pond, but it's actually part of like the county parks property. You can fish it.
Yep,
and I'm talking, it's even got a fence halfway around it.
Yeah,
it literally looks like it's someone's backyard. And it's right off the road. And when you drive by it, you immediately think, I drove by it for years thinking, oh, this guy's got a cool backyard pond.
Yeah.
And then I looked into it one day on, I think, like a tax map or something. I was going to ask you in a second how you figure out, that's one of the hardest parts, how you figure out which property is public and which property is not. Because there's a lot of, for lack of a better word, there's a lot of bullshit going around where guys will mark property as private that is not private. We see a lot of that here.
Most of the
And
maps that I use are paper maps that describe everything. They'll tell you if it's Delaware State Forest, if it's state game lands. So I'm still old school, using a lot of paper maps,
but
and I'll
how do
use
you,
Google Earth as well. But these maps tell you whether or not. And what's nice about this is there's a couple of lakes where the entire lake is private except for one small corner that's on state game lands. So if you can get to that corner of that lake, you can fish it because it's part of the state game lands. Sometimes you'll have lakes that are on property that's private, but there's part of it is also public land. So there's several lakes like that are in the Poconos.
I don't know. Do you know of any lakes like that in New Jersey? I know the opposite where.
I mean, we have lakes that are half in two different states. I don't know of one that's like half private. I'm sure they're there. No,
I've never heard of that in New Jersey.
The thing I was going to say that's weird about us here is like between me and Chris, we have permission probably to hunt a very large, pretty decent amount of private lakes. We don't fish any of them until there's ice. We'll go to none of them at all. I'm serious too. Like we don't fish any of them open water, and then as soon as there's ice, we're on all of them. It's just like a weird Jersey thing. Like you don't fish the private stuff till there's ice on it. Am I wrong, Chris?
You literally just did a bass tournament on a private lake. You just talked about it.
That's not a private. That's like swimming pond.
No, but he is right to a point. It's just I don't know. For some reason, a lot of the private lakes freeze. I guess because they're smaller and shallower. In my opinion, a lot of them don't make great open water fishing lakes. But they're some of the first lakes to freeze, and they're decent ice fishing lakes for whatever reason.
And they're much more likely to have safer ice as well for longer.
You'd have to imagine where he is. It's easier to like go exploring and find like these kind of spots than where we are, because it's just here. It's just 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag, so there's nothing left of anything.
I'm guessing you're up in the Poconos, you said, or that's.
Well, I live in Allentown, but I have a little vacation place 20 minutes from Lake Wallenpaupack. So I spend a lot of my fishing time up there. My home lake is actually Nakamixon. I spend more time there than anywhere. But I spend quite a bit of time on Wallenpaupack. And speaking of some of those lakes, that was one of the things I was hoping to talk about a little bit, hybrid striper fishing, because I know Jersey has a couple of good ones, Spruce Run being one of them.
Oh, yeah.
I think a Packton's another one.
Yeah. Have you mentioned you have fished Spruce Run, but have you fished Lake Opakon?
Never fished Opakon, Spruce Run many times.
Okay, and we're definitely going to talk about the pure strain stripers. That's what I'm most curious about, in my own opinion.
Yeah.
But if you had questions for any of those lakes too, feel free. I mean, the conversation is yours.
One of the things I wanted to bring up, your viewers, some of them are probably aware of this, but recently they made a management decision on Lake Wallenpaupack. Paupack has got purebred and hybrids in them, and it's a great fishery for both. I think it's the best fishery in Pennsylvania for both hybrids and purebreds. But they stopped stocking the hybrids 2 years ago, and they have a statement on the Fish Commission website about why. And if you don't mind, I can pull it up here and read it to you. Let me just
go ahead.
Pull this up here.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Joe, have they ever stopped stocking hybrids in a lake that they were already stocking? I feel like I can't think of one off the top of my head.
The only one is like, I know Split Rock. They did like that 50 fish experimentation.
That was
and never did it again.
It was more like an experiment where I think they've thrown some into Monksville, but it wasn't a real stocking. It was like, it almost sounded like they had extra fish and they threw them in there. I'm
pretty sure Craig Lemon just like kidnaps some of them and sprinkles them around wherever he wants.
He's like a New Jersey angler vigilante superhero with just stocking surprise fish for people by accident.
So on their website here, it says hybrid striped bass stocking was discontinued in 2022 to eliminate potential resource competition and ensure integrity of the Atlantic coastal wild striped bass population. Now I know what they mean by that last part of the sentence, because that's why they stopped stocking Nakamixon. So what they're concerned about is they think, hybrid striped bass are supposed to be sterile, and they are. But there's been some cases where they've been able to spawn with striped bass somehow, and they were afraid. Really? They stopped stocking Minocamixin because they were afraid that somehow these hybrids would get down, and they could easily go down the Delaware, go over the dam, go down into Hicken Creek, get down into the Delaware River, and they were afraid that they would harm the genetic stock of stripers in the Atlantic Ocean, in the East Coast. Well, that horse has left the barn. I mean, they were stocking those things in Minocamixin in the late 80s, early 90s for a decade, and they put them in Blue Marsh Lake. They put them in all these lakes I'm mentioning. They can get down to the Delaware River. So I don't know if that's really why or not. So I tried to call the fisheries biologist today. He wasn't available. They gave me his email address, so I'm going to email him because I don't understand what they're doing. They're about to potentially ruin a really good fishery at Wallenpaupack over something that is probably never going to happen. And if it was going to happen, it happened already, from my point of view.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna say that they were concerned that the forage. Did it mention the forage or no?
It did say resource competition, which is an easy way out, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean,
whatever that means, right?
We have a similar thing here. I don't know if you heard of it or if you trout fish in New Jersey at all, but New Jersey stopped. We did a whole episode on it. I'm not going to get into it again, but New Jersey stopped stocking brook trout and brown trout, and people think it's because of the money. I'm not going to get into it, Joe. Relax. But I just want to say it's a similar with the brook trout. They claimed they didn't want to harm the genetics of the native brook trout, and I kind of said the same thing you just said. Hey guys, like that ship has sailed. Like you've been stocking brook trout for a long time. If you were gonna interfere, like if you were gonna mess up the genetics so that you did it already.
Yeah. Especially if they've been putting them in known native brook trout streams. In Pennsylvania, they try and keep those streams pure by not putting anything in and just not putting any brook trout in anyway. But yeah, if they've been doing that, like you said, that.
I know a couple places where for sure they were stocking brook trout into the main river and the tributaries right there or native brook trout. I'm sure it wasn't all of them happening like that, but I won't name the place or whatever, but I can tell you for sure, at least I could think of two right off the top of my head just without even thinking about it. But yeah, it's, I'm no scientist, but I tend to have the same opinion as you, and I question whenever the state kind of jumps in and stops doing something, and I don't know what else to say about that.
Well, I hope to get some more clarification from them, and if I do, I can share it with you guys, and maybe you can share it with your audience down the road if you feel it.
Oh, yeah, for sure, 100%. Let us know what you hear.
It's definitely like a really unique fishery, though. I mean, we don't even have a lake that offers those fish.
No.
And that lake's already loaded with giant salmon, correct?
Wallenpaupack, no. It's got brown trout and some rainbows. No salmon in Wallenpaupack. No.
Joe's wrong a lot. You get used to it.
It has walleye.
It has walleye and big ones. Yep. Yeah, so I actually have a list here somewhere of all the species that are in there. They may have tried Atlantic salmon in there years ago, but if they did, it didn't work out.
I could have sworn like the Lake Pacon Guide Service guys went up there all the time to landlocked salmon fish, but maybe that's a different lake.
I don't know what you're talking about, but
that'll be a different lake. Yeah.
Well, when it comes to actual numbers on these true strain fish in that lake, I mean, if I went there and actually targeted one, are my odds good of actually hooking one, or are they like unicorn fish?
What's that? What species?
The true strain stripers.
The purebreds. There's a ton of them in there. There's more. There's a lot of purebred in there. If you go on any of the Lake Wallenpaupack group pages, you'll see them caught almost daily. Really? There's some guys that really know what they're doing in the deep water this time of year. I like to fish for topwater. I'm a topwater fisherman. And so what happens with the purebreds and the hybrids is at night in May and June, you have the alewife spawn, and when the alewife are spawning, these things are going in there and busting them, and it's fun, and that's one of the ways I like to fish for them. And then in the fall, I like to blade bait them and spoon them. This time of year, I usually leave them alone, because if you catch a purebred in a lake this time of year with the water temperature the way it is, it's very likely that it's going to die anyway. Unless, if you keep them, that's one thing. But if I put mine back, and so it's they're not going to live, and so I usually avoid fishing for them in the summer.
Well, so we spend a lot of time during those 3 months doing the same thing, night fishing the alewife spawn for hybrids. But you're basically saying you're doing the same thing as us, but there's true stream stripers in the mix.
Yeah.
Exactly. How big do those fish get?
At Paupack, it's common to get fish from 12 to 20 pounds, the purebreds. And there's some in the 30-pound range. There's some real giants in Nakamixon. Nakamixon, they switched that fishery over. It was hybrids and purebreds, but they stopped putting pure hybrids in there years ago. And so now it's almost all purebreds. And my brother got one this year, I think it was 33 pounds in the spring. There's some in the 40-pound range in there.
Imagine that.
It also has them
night
too.
lure, Chris.
I mean, there's just something like, obviously you could go in the ocean and catch bigger stripers, right? But there's just something about, like, imagine your fish, like, because like Joe said, it sounds like we're doing the exact same thing for walleye and then hybrids and mixed together.
Yep.
Except when you hear that blast in the night, you could be hooked up to something like 3 times bigger than anything you've ever hooked doing this before.
The possibility is always there, especially in the month of May. And come when that water starts getting warmer, the purebreds start, they come up at night, but less and less. And the hybrids, you can still get them at night up at Paupack. It goes right through July.
So do you, like, when I go out, I'm using usually like a 6'6" medium light with 14-pound. You have to be prepared in a happy medium where you might hook a hybrid or a giant.
Absolutely. I'll use a medium heavy in most cases. Sometimes I'll just use a medium rod. I base it based on what I'm throwing. Like, to me, there's certain baits that you can throw much better on a medium power rod than a medium heavy or a heavy. So it depends and that depends on the size of the alewife, right? But and Nakamixon, the alewives are 5, 6, 7 inches. They're big. Paupack, 3.5 inches. The water's less eutrophic up there, and there's just less food for all the alewife. But there's a ton of them in there. So smaller baits at Paupack, larger baits at Nakamixon.
Now, Lake Pacon's obviously the biggest lake we have in our state. I mean, it'll fit inside that lake a couple times over.
Yeah, I was going to ask him if you know off the top of your head how many acres about is Wallenpaupack.
5,700. 5,700 acres with 52 miles of shoreline.
So that's almost twice the size of Lake Pacon.
Yeah, it is. Pacon's like 2,500, I think, something like that.
So that was kind of leading to my question of how hard is it to locate those fish on the night bite? I mean,
yeah, it's easy.
It is easy.
It is, because
use your ears.
Yeah, well, the first thing is I eliminate, by June, I've already eliminated half the lake. I'm in mid-lake down to the dam, and I'm looking at main lake points, and that's all. And from there, it's using your ears, like you said. You visit the main lake points, you look for the bait fish, and you listen. And if you do that, you'll find them.
Can you pull off some fishing on that lake with a 9.9, or it's just too much for a 9.9?
You can at night, but in the daytime, I wouldn't. It's in the day at that lake, it gets really, really crowded with a lot of pleasure boaters buzzing by. At night, it's pretty. May and June, there's guys out there in kayaks at night. I've seen them out there already.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Chris, why have we never done this?
You know what? I don't know. I honestly don't know. I mean, it's obviously a little bit of a drive. You'd probably have to camp out. Is there a camp? Can you camp out there anywhere in the park?
It's not even. We've driven farther to do dumber things.
There are several campsites at the lake. One of them is on Ironwood Point, which is about 2/3 up the lake. And there's another one mid-lake at Capri Marina. They have campsites there. That's a good area too. It's got a lot of points nearby that generally have those stripers working.
I'm so curious to ask him what lure he throws, so we could tell him what lure we throw and compare them.
Oh, I'd love to compare lures.
Yeah, we'll do that off the scene here later on, but I'd imagine they're somewhere in the same ballpark. I'm hoping it's something I've never heard of.
It might be. The lure I like the most, you can't get anymore.
Oh boy.
Well, then it's definitely not the same lure, right? Yeah, and you know what? And if you can't get it, you can't get it. But if we tried your lure where we fish, I bet you it'd work, and vice versa. And
I don't mind telling you the lure on here. I mean, I've talked about it on my channel so much.
All right, go ahead.
That lure now is going for $90 on eBay because of me.
Well, what's the lure? They don't make it anymore anyway. Who cares?
It's a Norman Top Dollar. That's the name of the lure. It's a top water lure. There's no lure like it. It has a real narrow back. It looks just like an alewife or a little shad, and you can walk the dog with it, but it also spits and pops like a popper. So it makes a really good noise.
Me neither.
I've never.
If you look it up,
if Signal 11 Steve sees this, he'll be making these by next week.
Yeah, I have friends that make or at least try to make them.
I was gonna say a lot of guys make lures. There's got to be someone who can replicate it. Effectively.
If you were willing to play around with a mold, you can make one just the way you would want it. The only thing I wish is the bait is like 3.5 inches long. It's not very big. I wish they had one that was 5 inches, a bigger one, and then I'd really be happy to have both of those.
What bait would you say it closest looks like? Like what does it compare to? Does it look like a popper? Does it look like a Zara spook? What does it look like?
Yes, it looks a little like both. It's got like an open mouth on it. It's shaped. Are you familiar with what's the name of this lure? The thin fin, the Storm thin fin. You know that lure? It's a real thin crankbait. And that's what makes this lure interesting. It's very thin from shoulder to shoulder, but then the head of it opens up like a popper, and it's weighted in the back, so you can walk the dog with it nicely.
Huh?
Yeah, and there's no lure that really looks like. It's hard to come up with a lure that is similar to it.
I feel like I can picture what you're talking about, and I don't know of anything that can look similar to it either.
Yeah, it's not pencil shaped. It's got a deep
makes
body.
Zedin makes the spook with the cupped mouth, so it could kind of, but it's not thin.
Yeah, the chugging spook. That's a good bait. The chugging spook. The difference is this is not cigar shaped. It's shad shaped.
It's pretty thin.
Yeah, very thin from shoulder to shoulder, I guess.
See, I always said that. I mean, if you imagine looking up at a herring from underneath it, it's as thick. It's less than 1/8 of an inch thick. They're so razor thin.
Yep.
They only look fairly big from the side view.
Oh, but they do that side flutter so much during that time of year. I mean, I'm assuming that's what.
But what he's talking about, a lure with that thin profile like the actual herring, there aren't many lures like that. So it
looks just like them. It's the same shape as the bait fish, and yet you can cast it and work it. It's that's what makes it so darn good.
It always drives me crazy when there's this like perfect lure, and they just stop making it. It happens.
I called Norman about it. They don't have any plans of making any more. I said, just do another run of 1,000. I said, they're selling for $90 on eBay. You can't go wrong. But they have no immediate plans to do it. And I have 20 of them. I still want more.
Why? It doesn't make any sense.
Did they make them in different colors, or they only came one color?
They did. They have, I like to fish Shahola Lake for bass. This is another lake in Pike County in Pennsylvania. They eat bluegill there, and they have bluegill colors too. So they have shad color, type colors, bluegill color. Like I said, I bought these things when they were going for like $12 a piece. Simmons Tackle had them on eBay like 3 years ago, and they just kept selling them in packs of 3. And I ended up getting like 23 or 24 of them, and I lost a few since then. So I have 20 of them left. And but I want more, and I want some different colors because I only have a few colors, unfortunately.
Imagine you're using your favorite lure, Joe, and you have like a finite amount of them, and every time you lose one, it like that gut feeling, like your heart just must like, oh God, I'm down one more.
There's one in a tree at Lake Wallenpaupack that I have to retrieve yet. I need to take my little tree cutter and go up and get it. I know where it is.
My buddy that I used to fish with, he passed a couple years ago. We had this lure that it was our favorite lure. It's what we use. Like, we love this lure, but they're still available. You could still buy them for $10-12. He threw one into a tree. He's like, go over there. I'm getting it back right now. I'm like, dude, I got 5 more right here, and we could go to the bait. Not go. He climbed the tree at like 60 years old. He climbed the tree. I have a picture of it somewhere, like of him up in this tree in the person's yard. Like, it's insane. I couldn't imagine what he'd do with a lure that they didn't make anymore.
Our friend Dwayne loves that. He loves throwing spinner baits, but the only spinner bait he likes to throw is the Terminator. And they don't make those, so he has like a stockpile of those, and they're like new in the package, like safeguarded in his basement.
He hoards them though; he doesn't even use them.
Yeah, he doesn't do it. He uses one of them.
Yeah, but they have the titanium arms. I like Terminators; they're pretty good.
Yeah, it's another great lure that just they stopped making it completely. Joe, are you sure?
It's out. Yeah, they're gone. Oh. They're same thing. You go on eBay and one Terminator spinner bait's $48.
It makes no sense. Crazy.
They can't compete with the giants like Pure Fishing has. They own 90 companies. This one company makes this one top water lure. They just have no chance anymore. It's not fair. But that's a whole nother episode in itself.
Yeah.
Dennis,
but if people are willing to pay that much money for them, how does that not mean there's a market for them that's worth it?
They weren't willing to pay that much for it when it was available. Now that they can have it, it's worth money to them. But when you actually have one, they don't give a shit. It's like it's just.
I would think if you bring it back and say, hey, limited time, it's back for a limited time, like the McRib at McDonald's. It's a freaking disgusting sandwich. It somehow tastes kind of good. It's kind of weird, but it tastes good. Oh, and then every time they've done it 100 times, they bring it back, and you go, I got to get a McRib, and then you eat it, and you're like, why did I do that?
The only lure that I know that they did that with, and this is another great striper lure. It's called the Cordell Blue Striper. Don't know if you're familiar with it. They don't make that anymore either. It's like I would call it the first glide bait. It's about 4 or 4.5 inches long, but it has this glide action to it. And great striper and smallmouth lure. And they did come out with they did a run of like 1,000 of them. This was probably in the late 1990s. And when they did, I think I bought like 40 of them. I still have most of those.
I know Mr. Twister. Mr. Twister discontinued the Sassy Shad, and I
remember that.
So many people complained about it that they just started making them again. So if you do complain enough, I guess it does work with some of them.
Yeah.
But Dennis, anyway, if someone watching wants to go on YouTube or find your social medias, how do they find you?
Well, that's a good question. I know. First and foremost, it's FishDen365. That's my channel on YouTube, and then I also have a Facebook page. Same thing, FishDen365. I'm also on Facebook as Dennis Haring as well, and Instagram, same thing, FishDen365 on Instagram. And those are the only social medias that I'm currently involved in.
Good. Those are the only good ones anyway, really.
Yeah, what else? Well, Joe likes TikTok.
I don't like TikTok. It's just necessary. And Facebook is like, it's just ridiculous, Facebook. There's no freedom on it at all. Dennis, I want to thank you so much for coming on the NJ Multispecies podcast. I don't want to waste any of your time. I do want to talk to you on the side later about lures. Also, me and Chris will trade top water walleye and hybrids for some top water true strains anytime you want to go.
Yeah, it sounds like Lake Wallenpaupack. I did fish it once from the shore, but I don't know anything about it. But it sounds like it's kind of like a bigger Lake Hopatcong almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, less weeds. I think Kapakton might have more weeds from what I hear, but it's a very good multi-species lake.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
going there.
Yeah, no, for sure. And if anyone listening that hasn't checked out Dennis's YouTube, Fish Den 365, there's some real cool videos on there. I've checked out a couple of them. Obviously, there's a ton of them. I haven't seen near all of them, but the ones I did see is very, very helpful. I think you successfully walk that line that we talk about all the time, where you share the right amount of information without, blowing spots up. Even though someone's always going to complain, no matter what. I think there's a right way to do it. I think you do it, and some very cool videos on there, informational about a lot of these fisheries, including that night striped bass, pure strain striped bass in the lake there. It sounds awesome.
Fish Den 365. Dennis, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
All right, take care, Dennis.
You too.
So most of the fishing and bouncing all over the place that me and Chris do, a lot of that information was gathered up over the years researching through njfishing.com. 27 years as the #1 resource in New Jersey saltwater and freshwater fishing. 100% free for anyone to register. It has reviews of every boat on there to go on, all the charter and party boats that you should go on, and it gives you access to the archive that just has the history of everyone posting all their information over all these years. So try to sign up for njfishing.com today. All right, Chris, who's the guest next week?
Check this out, Joe. I got my Remington calendar from the Deer Classic, and I got all the stuff, so I don't have to count on the phone working.
So that's like an actual podcast room you made. That's incredible. I bought a lava lamp.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, no, dude, I got my Ted Nugent hat. I got some old metal like fishing signs. I got you see the like vintage, like some kind of vintage fishing rod I had laying around, and I've got you see the red thing.
I'm hoping this is inside the same apartment you were living in with Katie, and you're not homeless now in your own place by yourself.
No, I'm down. I'm banished to the basement now.
Oh, that's good.
Dude, it's nice and cool down here. I love it. That red thing. That's like it's like this vintage bobber, dude. It's awesome. It's just like a wooden dowel with a piece of floating wood on it.
Who's the guest next week?
Right, so the guest next week is Evan Padula, and that's he's a guide on the Upper Delaware River, Sweetwater Guide Service.
Sweetwater Guide Service, the person that's been taking Andrew Still fishing for the past 30 years. I can't wait to talk to them.
Is that true?
That's the only guide service Andy fishes with. Like, he goes there all the time, every year.
Are you 100% not messing with me right now?
If it's the same Sweetwater Guide Service from the West Branch of the Delaware River, no. That's Andrew Still's favorite #1 guide service on the planet.
Oh my God, that's gonna be there's got to be some gold in there. Dude, I hope you're right.
I'm right. Trust me. He's invited me to go with him at least 30 times. I'll never forget the name.
He doesn't even know who you are.
That's a whole nother episode. Trust me. All right, we'll be back next week. We're going to talk with Sweetwater Guide Service, upstate New York trout fishing, and see if they have any dirt on Andrew Still for us.
Oh yeah. I'm going to be digging for it, dude. There's got to be some good stories.
Good night.